are live. This could be a tad louder, but yeah, can you turn on? It's the main handheld. All right, welcome. Welcome to LA2M. How's everybody doing? All right, great. If you don't know, my name is Derek Maribon, and I run a company called Indentity Digital Marketing, and I tend to kick off these meetings. Thank you, Jim. That sounds better. Welcome. We meet. This is LA2M. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We meet every Wednesday, or most Wednesdays. We have brilliant speakers about interesting topics, and wonderful people show up. So thanks to all of you who showed up. Is there anyone here for your very first LA2M? Very first? Okay, welcome. You picked a good one. You picked a good one. Yeah, so anyways, a couple things about LA2M. I know most of you are veterans. We are a nonprofit group, so we've been doing this now for 6 years. This is our 7th year. This is our 7th year doing this, and we do charge $5 at the door. That helps cover our costs, which is great. We appreciate that. We run groups. We run a group on LinkedIn. You can stay in touch with us there. We have a Facebook page. Please like the page. We do have Twitter, and we live tweet the events. Rayle films all the events, and they are archived. So if you ever want to learn about a topic, all these events are archived at LA2M.org, and feel free to go watch those videos. Carter takes pictures every week, and this is a volunteer organization. Jim's a volunteer, I'm a volunteer. Really, our speakers are volunteers. Just do it out of the goodness of their heart. And our goal is to teach marketing and help people succeed. You know, so Mary Lou Olds is our one employee. You probably meet her at check-in. And so anyways, that's kind of what we do, and we do it every week. We also have. There's a couple things. We have a holiday party next week, which I want to make sure to mention. Yeah, right up here, you can see the LA2M holiday party. And please buy your tickets. We're trying to get them, Mary Lou, when are we trying to get all the tickets bought? By this week? Right?
Yes, last day should be Sunday.
Okay,
yeah.
So we're trying to get a head count this week, because then we have to plan the party and the catering. Counters puts on an incredible spread, and it's really nice. So it's tons of food, good music. You get a drink ticket, so if you like beer or wine, and it's kind of a fun party. It's from 11:30 to 1:30. That's next Wednesday. Yes, Bud?
I was going to ask what times.
Yeah, 11:30 to 1:30. Yeah, so we do have the lunch hour, just because we figure people are so busy at the holidays. But you can come for lunch if you have a team. Bring your team, bring your friends, and come on to the party. So that'd be great. At LA2M, we also have sponsors, which is a huge part of what makes us able to operate. And Jim Musil is going to talk about our sponsors.
Hi everybody, welcome. As Derek said, we're very fortunate. We have great speakers here each week, as those of you who continue to come know, but we couldn't do it without our sponsors, and we're very appreciative to have sponsors. We have a couple main sponsors. Our platinum sponsor for this year is Sign the Properties, which is Briarwood Mall. And Denise Murray is here from Briarwood Mall and is just going to speak for a minute and tell you a little bit about it.
Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone here, and I think that this is such a great platform for marketing people, because you always have to stay fresh and stay new, so it's really important that we do networking. And I've provided, this is our holiday up at the mall, which we're at our busiest season, so if you do have clients who could benefit from having the exposure of the traffic of the shopping center, please come see me. I am providing LA2M a discount on advertising. So if you are interested, there's a packet in the back, cards in the back, and I have the rate sheets as well. So it's really good to see you guys here, and I hope to see you every week.
Thanks, Denise. You know, I mean, we're all going to be at the mall this holiday season, so make sure we patronize Briarwood Mall. Denise is here as a sponsor, and we're really appreciative of that. We also have a gold sponsor, which is Washtenaw Community College. They have some brochures on the back table, and I think, Denise, you also have some materials on the back table as well, if you're interested in sponsorship opportunities. But Washtenaw Community College has some great programs. I know they're on break right now, but they're going to be starting up again for the winter semester. And they have a lot of programs. If you're interested, there's a lot of digital marketing programs. So check out the program. We're again, very happy to have them as our gold sponsor. We also have monthly sponsors. And if you or your company is interested in sponsoring LA2M, you get to come up here each week and say a little bit about your company for the month. And we're very appreciative. This month's sponsor is Dexter Builders. Jordan's not here, and I didn't see him, so I did have a little commercial, but of course I've lost maybe. No, there it is, Dexter Builders. They specialize in providing complete home improvement services from initial design through construction to final walkthrough inspection. They can handle any part of a job, small or large. Whether you're looking for a bathroom remodeling, room addition, or replacement window, or any other commercial or home remodeling, Dexter Builders can turn your home improvement ideas into reality. So there, how'd you like that commercial? So when you see George, you can let him know I did his commercial for him. But again, we're very appreciative of our sponsors. If you are interested, do we have a January sponsor? Indentity will be our January, so I'll tell you about them in January. So, but we're looking for a February sponsor. So if you are interested, please see either Derek or myself or Mary Lou, and we'd be happy to get you set up. So enjoy the program today, everybody.
Thank you, Jim, and thanks, Denise, and all our sponsors. All right, so now on to the speaker. Just to give you an idea, this guy will talk, our speaker's going to talk potentially until 12:45. There may be some time for Q&A, but at 12:45 we do introductions, and at 1 o'clock we're done. So 1 o'clock you'll be out, you can talk to people, network, whatever you do, go back to work. So today's speaker is a longtime friend of mine, or at least quite a few years since we've been in this business. But Brandon Chesnutt, he's with Indentity PR, which does some great work, and he's going to teach you about social media crisis management and what goes on there. So let's give Brandon Chesnutt a warm round of applause and welcome him to LA2M.
Derek, thank you. This is my third time speaking at LA2M, and it seems like every time I come here I pick like a really random, strange topic. Like I talked about geographic marketing and building like different strategies for different cities. I've talked a little about some of the work we've done with other clients like Verizon Wireless. So I'm like, oh, let's pick a topic that literally no one ever wants to talk about, but they know they have to, crisis communications, because it's a reality, especially in this space. And you know, the title of my topic is when some combination of words hits the fan. You can kind of guess which one that might be. And I also tried to find like the dirtiest looking fan possible, which was like really hard on ThinkStock, but you can imagine if you're trying to really convey how serious this is and kind of the feelings you might have, sometimes a really terrible image can be the one that helps convey that thought. So a little bit about me. As Derek mentioned, this is my third time speaking at LA2M. For the past 8 years, I've been at Indentity, which is a strategic communications firm. We specialize in what we call integrated PR, media relations, and marketing, creative and social media. I've spent the past 8 years, this coming January, building our social media department. We have about 6 people on that team, which I lead, and about 20 plus clients throughout the country, including, that's part of our 65 total agency clients. My day job is really a couple things. One, it's strategy, it's planning, it's managing the execution of programs, a lot of measurement now, because everybody wants to know ROI this, ROI that, which is real, and then of course coming to big ideas as they're needed to really help take programs to the next level. But you know, a lot of times I'm called into certain situations that are unplanned, or necessarily the planning isn't always in place, which is mainly crisis situations. It's a reality now with digital, and if you're kind of playing in that space, you need to be prepared for it. So 9 times out of 10 when this sort of thing happens, I get a phone call, either an existing client or a client that's not ours, and they're just looking for crisis representation, and like, listen, here's what's going on, here's the challenge we have, how can you help? So before we get into the details, one, let's define what a crisis situation is. So that's really a disruption to the business that puts the company's future at risk. And that can be a lot of different things. It could be inward-facing, changes inside the company that may directly impact its future. It could be outward, something with customers. It could be market-facing, economic forces. It could be trends in compliance, regulatory issues, a number of different things. I think usually when we think of like social media crisis communications, we think of some person that's really angry and they post something on Facebook and they're like, oh my gosh, now it's got 10,000 likes. That's a part of social media crisis communications, but I don't think it's the heart of what really could happen in this world. I can tell you that if you're in social media, you're in marketing, and all you're doing is community management, and anything else happens outside of channels you own, you're lucky, because that's where the real wild, wild west stuff is. On Facebook, you got a lot of control. You can delete, you can change, you can follow some best practices. It's everything else that happens where stuff really gets interesting. And I think because of that, in reality, some crisis situations are manageable. Like well, I should say sort of. They're sort of manageable, that we can essentially follow the best practices that are written in stone. Someone's upset, they post something on Twitter, we follow through and we respond and we act human and we follow all these best practices in social media that we've learned over the past 10 plus years as it's really evolved and changed, and there's been certain case studies that have been written. We all have something to follow. They're never fun, but they are manageable. They sort of have a beginning and an end. But then there's other crisis situations. These are like the huge brand-destroying crisis communications issues that literally could change the face of the company. My friend Christopher Barger, who heads up social media at Voci Communications, he used to be the head of social media at Chevrolet and General Motors. He called this the 3 Mile Island scenario. A huge issue that in theory could change the face of the company or completely change distrust in terms of consumer-facing perception of the brand. And you can imagine Chevrolet and GM, they got a lot going on. So even with the bankruptcy and then up until now, they faced real crisis communications. More than just people posting on Facebook that they're unhappy with the color of their seats. Like real important things that could change the face of the brand. So, knowing that that's what crisis situations really are, it's funny, whenever I hear talks about crisis situations, there's differing opinions of the value of it. And in many cases, it's a person like me, a marketing person, that comes up and talks about crisis communications. And I like to think that there are many crisis communications people that come up and say, you know what, I secretly love crisis communications. And I think there's a quote that really reminds me of why they think this way. It's from Epictetus, who's a Greek philosopher. I used to be really into history, and he was one of those Greek Stoic philosophers that believed fate was defined and all these things. But he had this interesting quote where he said that skillful pilots gain their reputation from storms and tempests. Basically, if you're going to really learn how to do this, you got to deal with some crap. And able to know how to navigate it, know how to perfect processes, and essentially have a couple scars on you to really understand the full nuances of what it means to be in communications. So that's kind of the most communicator viewpoints. I think most businesses think a little bit differently. They're looking at things from the lens of, okay, great, there could be a crisis communication issue, but really my schedule's pretty full the next week, so it really, really can't happen. I really don't want to see that issue pop up. They're a little bit more in reality in terms of what a crisis situation can mean to a business. Then there's other opinions, I should say. Probably look something like this, where they're like, oh, there's a crisis situation, how are we going to deal with it? In reality, that was like me circa 2007. The first crisis situation I dealt with, like the first year I was at the company, this is before the Ford Ranger station. This is before you could go on social media today and figure out what to do in a social media crisis situation. The best practices didn't exist. And we were dealing with bloggers calling out CEOs to come into buildings and spend the night there because they think there's mold. So we're like, what do we do? And we're like, let's try to figure it out. And we'll work our way through it. We made some mistakes, but we understood at the end of the day why the digital realm was so different and why it deserved a different set of skills to really manage it effectively. What I find interesting is that Burson Marsteller did this study recently with companies in Europe, and they found that only 1 in 5 companies is actually prepared for a crisis situation. Holy crap, that's scary. 1 in 5. So what does that actually look like? Companies that are prepared are more likely to really do 3 things. 1, review their plan every year. How many of you have reviewed your crisis communications plan this year? How many of you reviewed a crisis plan this year? You guys might want to consider doing something next year. Just throwing it out there. 2, they own a prepared checklist in case something goes wrong. What do we do? Who do we talk to? Who owns what? What role do people play inside the organization? And then the last thing is they have a specific digital crisis plan. They know what to do online as much as what they're doing internal messaging, external messaging, PR, legal compliance, all those things. There's a role for digital. In that same study, there were some other really interesting statistics. 59% of companies believe that social media has significantly increased the potential cost of a crisis. Because of social media, it could cost companies more money. Either more money to manage it, more money to deal with the situation, more money to rectify the issue. That's huge. I mean, the majority of companies thinking that because of digital, now we're at a bigger risk in terms of just dollars. That's why they should be planning and thinking about this, because it's going to have that much of an impact on their company. And really, the new reality is that you can't have an effective crisis situation or crisis management plan without digital and social. It's crazy to think that in today's communications world, and part of the reason we're all here is because we're connected that way, that you're not thinking about digital tools, digital channels, and how they play a role in crisis management. You know, tweets can become news just as easily as news can become tweets. Something that your company releases becomes a Twitter conversation, and something you tweet about all of a sudden becomes headline news. I was dealing with a company here in town, multi-billion-dollar company. They have 8 PR people, a digital team of 4. They recently had to do layoffs, and it's not fun. And as you can imagine, that's a crisis situation. While it's sort of predicted, they knew it was coming. And usually, in that case, PR and executive communications, internal comms wants to get the word out and say, all right, here we go. Release is out. They know the restructuring is happening. But there was no digital component that really came with it. Not even though they had 4 digital people that were monitoring and paying attention, communications and digital inside this multi-billion-dollar company really didn't connect when this announcement was made. So what happens? All of a sudden there are employees tweeting, is my job at risk? Am I going to have a job next week when I come in? And here are these 4 digital people trying to navigate this situation, and they're not really connected in terms of what happens and what the messaging should be to those people. And that's just a one-off circumstance inside a huge, huge company. You can imagine as you get more complex, even bigger companies, even smaller, the types of situations that can occur and the types of conversations that can happen if digital or social either doesn't have a foothold on the front end or the back end of the conversation. So that really starts with what should digital people do first? So you're in a role where maybe you're managing communities, maybe you're creating content, maybe you're just doing monitoring, analytics, maybe it's part marketing, part digital, whatever that might be. There has to be something that you should do to at least broach this conversation. And I think it really starts with being part of crisis planning sessions. So companies get together once a year, if not more, and they talk sales, they talk recruiting, they talk operations. How often do they talk about crisis management? In many cases, that's prompted by legal or HR or compliance, depending on the business you're in. If you're insurance or in something highly regulated, compliance comes up a lot. Digital PR, they should have a seat at the table, at least just to listen and understand what the plan is. In many cases, there's a folder sitting inside, maybe it's your company's right now, it's got a bunch of dust on it, and that is like your crisis communications plan. No one has looked at it in like 2 years, but you have something. So it's good to at least understand what the planning process looks like, because the first thing you should be doing is understanding what is digital's role when something happens inside of the company. What do we do? And it's going back to the original point of layoffs. You might find yourself inside of a large company having to make those tough decisions. What should digital be doing when something that's a little bit more predictable takes place? And I use the word predictable pretty loosely. How do you manage it? What happens if it's reactive? What happens if all of a sudden there's a transition at the executive level, or there's an acquisition? What role does digital play inside those conversations? And sometimes it's just repackaging tweets for 140 characters. Sometimes it's pointing people to appropriate amount of information that's actually coming from the brand. In other cases, it's deploying an entire dark site, which is like a hidden website in your architecture that can populate if something really goes wrong. You can imagine in terms of environmental disasters or uncontrollable acts of nature that could impact a business. And in reality, this is what happens. This you can't predict everything, but that stuff could likely happen. Another important role from a digital standpoint is how do you assess digital threats? Someone who understands social media usually is the closest to understanding, is this a real threat or not? Is this really an issue we should be concerned about, or should we just ignore it? And I will tell you 9 times out of 10, most businesses, they just ignore it. They understand, yeah, we should be open and we should be transparent, we should be honest, and all these things we talk about, the kumbaya stuff with social media, it's not really the case. They want to know, is this a threat to our business or not? Is this a real issue we need to address, or can we sort of take a step back and simply monitor? What I can tell you, and this is probably what most people in this room know, is that people who really get social media can do freaking damage. Like, imagine, here's me, I've been spending 8 years in social media, and I go to your company, and I'm looking to be a client or a customer, and you do something to make me really angry. Imagine you're in that seat too. You ever have that conversation, you're like the digital person or maybe a marketing person inside a company, and you're like, man, these guys really don't want to make me mad because I'm going to go to Yelp and I'm going to do all these things because I know how to do it. You're dangerous. You are dangerous. You understand how it works. And you can do a lot of things that can impact that company's search, community management, content, building a whole site on Tumblr and going nuts. You understand that is a threat. And in many cases, a digital person inside of a company has to assess, is a person that has an issue, do they understand the technology? They understand community nuances? Do they have a following? All those things to really help paint a good POV on what the reaction of the company should be. What is the impact this potential person could have on the brand or people based on their knowledge of digital tools? The other piece too is reviewing issues and compliance through a digital lens. So this is where things get really interesting and sometimes a little complicated, is that, you know, social media moves fast. We know you gotta respond quickly, you have to come up with a resolution, you have to figure out what you're gonna do for something, or at least quickly send a tweet out and say, hey, we heard you. That's not always the case, depending on the type of company you're in. And there's a lot of factors that can influence how you respond to things and do your job. Policies, procedural issues, regulatory issues, compliance. Those can all impact how you respond to a situation. I was just in a situation yesterday where someone tweeted at one of our clients that they couldn't access a certain service because they were on a certain ISP. This ISP, this internet service provider, was actually owned by this client's largest competitor. So you can imagine, how do we respond to this? Do we name the client? Do we actually do research? Are we actually doing something that could be an issue? And we had to actually send it through legal before we could send a 140-character tweet. So that's the type of things that you're dealing with. Imagine healthcare, HIPAA, you know, customer information. They could be putting stuff out there they don't know, but it could influence how you respond to that situation. Sometimes there are problems that are unforeseeable based on information about people that maybe are released or not released in a public domain, and all of a sudden they're all over social media. That can influence how you respond. And that's why having that seat at the table is so critical. These issues don't happen all the time, but when they do, because whatever you put out there is out there forever, it's important to know how to navigate them and have the best advice internally before you start sending external messages. And probably one of the most important things is leveraging the tools at your disposal. So this is where actual technology comes into crisis communications, management, and planning. So your digital toolbox, your monitoring tools, your publishing tools, those can play a key role in managing a crisis situation. I know that an agency friend of mine that was working with a huge client in the firearms industry, they had an issue with weapons going off, unknown. And talk about how scary that is. You're managing the social media for this, and there was an issue that could go legal. They essentially had used their monitoring solutions, and they were using one of the big guys, Brandwatch or Lithium or something, and they were monitoring 24/7 just to understand what was going on in the conversations. And it wasn't just, here's what people are posting on our social media pages, it was forums, it was blogs, it was all the different things related to this issue. In many cases, they were just gathering intelligence. They were looking for issues that might be coming up that they need to actually respond to. In other cases, they were actually looking for people that were affected in what they were saying, because those tweets could be used in discovery, in a lawsuit, all these different things, depending on the direction things tip. So digital tools play a really important role. And I guarantee that if you're inside of a company that has a PR person or a marketing person, they probably don't know what they don't know regarding the tools that you use. And explaining to them, hey, here's how we're monitoring, here's how we pay attention, here's how we add things. That really adds a lot of clarity. I worked in a situation where we had to monitor due to a union dispute in another market, which was pretty large union body that was staging a walkout and a protest. And we had to quickly add keywords to our monitoring solution. At the time, we were using Season Most by MarketWired. And we had to go back and start to filter through tweets a week prior to the actual staged walkout, which some services allow you to do that because they index information, but we had to know what was planned, what was going on, what were the conversations. We needed to have an idea of how to paint a picture to a huge company that this is what the discussion's about when it comes to this walkout. Here's how you can be prepared from a traditional media perspective as this happens. On top of that, publishing tools, being able to get content out quickly and relaying messages regarding a crisis situation. And then sometimes, again, things are planned and they're not. There was an article the other day that Eugene Jetz passed away. He was one of the co-founders of Jet's Pizza. He had a long bout with cancer, and the reason I really know this is that my dad was like best friends with him in junior high, and they were 12 years old. And you can imagine if you're a senior or a C-suite person inside of a large organization, that they often sometimes plan for things like that. But you can imagine the influx of conversation around Jet's Pizza that may not necessarily be about the product that's now taking place or could be taking place around that type of issue. Or there's other things that could be happening where you need to get content out quickly. I have some experience in retail real estate, and there are sometimes fires, floods, issues that have displaced people. Usually it's a mixed use area, there's living on top of retail, and we had an issue where there was a fire and flood, and it wasn't quite known who was at fault. We had to quickly get up a landing page, collect donations, coordinate with relief services to get people actually to a place, and this all involved launching a website within less than 24 hours to get that up. But there had to be infrastructure in place underneath it to support it. So that's an example of how tools can really work. But how do they all come together? How do all these things that I'm talking about actually make sense? So I want to give you guys a real scenario that I dealt with last year, actually 2 years ago. We actually won an award for this, Pierre Daly for digital crisis communications. So let's talk a little bit about the scenario. What would happen if you were in my shoes, and what would you be doing? So here's what happened. Here's how it worked. So 2 angry employees decided to go rogue, and on social media, they're mad, they're upset, and they decide that, all right, we're gonna get out there and we're gonna make this brand's life a living hell. So the first thing they do is they create a YouTube channel and YouTube videos showing them dumping unknown substances near clean drinking water sources. This company is in infrastructure management. They help with sewers and rehabilitate areas after major storms, like a lot after Katrina and stuff like that. So these guys, they go and they take these videos, they shoot them, they show themselves dumping this stuff near their clean drinking water. Then they send the videos to the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency. So here they are online. So, and to give you an idea, yeah, that's actually the YouTube channel, all the different videos that were being uploaded, and then this guy saying, someone needs to do something about this, it can kill people. So, you're me. You get this phone call, and it's like, guys, this is the situation. And this was pretty unique. This client didn't do a lot on social media, but this is a real threat. This wasn't on a Facebook page, they didn't own it, they couldn't delete it, they couldn't just respond back with a tweet. This was a real problem. It's like, it's with the EPA. I know a little bit. What do we do? So the first thing I said, like, let's go to work, man. I'm just going to drink a bunch of coffee and figure out what I'm going to be doing for the next 48, 72 hours just to understand and navigate this situation. And it's tough because you don't know everything. You don't exactly know what's going on and what the risks and opportunities are associated with this crisis situation. So what's the first thing we did? Number one, first thing we did was we identified what our goals were. We had to understand what we're going to be able to deliver in a short period of time. First was we needed to determine the potential impact of the issue. Remember I talked about analyzing digital threats? We needed to know what was working, what was not in terms of the brand. 2, recommended course of action. What do we actually do? Now that we know what we're doing, do we respond on YouTube? Do we go with a cease and desist? What do we do to actually combat these videos? 3, how do we limit public and media exposure? I know it sounds weird in social media that you actually want to limit the potential reach of these. We had to figure out how to do it. And in some cases, it wasn't what we were doing, it's what the person who uploaded the content was doing. And the last thing is actually executing the approved strategies. So let me walk you through a little bit of our timeline. Now the one thing here is we actually had a lot of time. We had a lot more than I thought we would, until this actually came to a climax in terms of the biggest issues related to it. So we had maybe a couple of weeks when most people would only have days. So, but I want to give you a thought on our process of how we manage it. So the first thing we did is we coordinated with relevant internal teams. We had multiple people at the table. Compliance, we had legal, PR, risk assessment, and social media all working together. Part of the reason why is we needed to know what legal knew, we needed to know what compliance knew, we needed to know what PR was planning. The good news is that PR was also inside my company, so I could just walk down the hall and that was it. But we had to know what was going on. We needed to know the employees. We needed to know, were they identified, were they not? Did we have to do some research and locate who they are? We actually did some, we got all the way down to like MySpace pages. It was crazy, like to find these guys. So to understand who they were, what was the issues taking place inside the company to rectify it? Was this a real health issue? Like, was this real? Are we dealing with a bigger disaster than we think? Luckily, that was not the case. And it was a lot more manageable than it appeared to be. But again, in this case, perception is reality. So what are these guys doing, and how it's being perceived by the marketplace was a real issue. So once we had that, we quickly updated our monitoring services. So we set increased alert frequency, included direct keywords for combinations that could be related to the company and misspellings. So one thing we noticed is that the guys who uploaded the video, they weren't very good at spelling. So we had to incorporate different misspellings for the company, the brand, the location, all those things into our monitoring service to be alerted in real time if there were any updates. After that, we analyzed the content. What worked in our favor, what worked against us, and do these people really get social media? There were a couple things that worked in our favor. Low quality video shot on a Samsung cell phone, very tough to tell what it was. Audio was really poor. They didn't do any of the standard stuff you do in a YouTube video, label it appropriately, SEO, titles, tags, the whole deal. There's some stuff that was right, some stuff that was wrong. There was embedding going on, which could be an issue, which means it could really grow if that person understood how to use Facebook and plan it in the right communities. They did get the company name right from an acronym standpoint on a couple cases, but we had to basically put together a POV, what worked, what didn't, and essentially weigh the opportunity cost of taking certain actions. From there, we actually capture the content. A lot of companies do not do this, and I can't stress it enough. First thing we did was actually keep records, links, and downloaded digital copies. We used a service called KeepVid. It's a free service. Just put in a YouTube link, and we actually downloaded the videos. Because what happens if that conversation's deleted or the accounts are deleted? We didn't want that to happen. I actually had that happen to me recently. We were with a company in the higher education space. There was a guy on there claiming the organization was racist, and he had a huge conversation that 300 comments. And the real issue that took place on there was that someone who was on the board piped in on the conversation and actually shared the student information that should not have been shared, basically saying there's a leak in the system. And all of a sudden that person deleted their account and all their comments were gone. So we had to make sure we captured what we could, because if we didn't, we had nothing that could be used in court in some way, shape, or form. So if you're not capturing that stuff, screenshots, you have to do it. It's tedious, it's mundane, but you need some sort of record in order to keep that to protect yourself. Then we researched the volatility. What I mean by volatility is, what were the sources of the video views? What were the chances this was likely to grow? How quickly were they gaining traction? We were lucky there was not a lot of traction here, but we looked at things like, again, how they were describing the videos. We looked at, and it's kind of hard to see, but what were the embed sources and view referrals for videos? So we could start kind of traveling down a rabbit hole. If there were referrals from forums, websites, we need to understand what those things are, because those could be part of our crisis outreach program if there was something going on. And then we provided recommendations, a POV to the client that said, here are the things that we should do, here are the things we shouldn't do based on what we know. Sometimes there's inactivity is the best course of action and simply monitoring. In other cases, responding comes out. We needed to understand what our plan of action was and how it coincided with the rest of the company. The last piece was developing cross-departmental messaging. I cannot stress how important this is in digital crisis communications. As I said, news can become tweets just as easily as tweets can become news. I'm lucky because I have a background in PR. I spent a year and a half doing that before I really got into social media, and building my team. So I understand how the newsroom works and understand how stories are put together and packages are put together. A lot of social media people, unfortunately, don't have that exposure. And the second a story goes cross-channel, it's very hard for them to provide recommendations. So understanding what PR would be doing, what the messaging was there, executive communications, internal communications, and then social, critical. Because we knew something was going to happen. We knew that our worst fear was this story going cross-channel, going outside of social media and getting picked up in a major news outlet. So what do you think happened? A couple days later, we got a phone call from a local television station. So my job as Twitter master or monitoring guy just changed. Now we know something's going on, and these guys want to do a story. Understanding how a newsroom works, how to talk to reporters, how to tell them don't jump the gun on this story until you hear our side of it, and sometimes playing a little hardball when it comes to investigative reporting, that totally changed the face of what could happen with an article. In reality, we were prepared. we knew what we were doing. We had a strong idea of what we'd say to the newsroom, what we knew we'd be saying to reporters, what the executives would be communicating, and how we'd relay that on digital. So what happened? Something pretty good. That's an actual clip from the news story. Sewage spill video, a fake. They ran a 2.5-minute piece on 2 employees bullying their company with fake YouTube videos. There's also a quote from the Southwest GM, exactly what the communications level should be. This wasn't part of our process. The 2 employees have been dealt with. So really, in reality, that was like the best outcome ever. That was like, we totally changed what could be a negative PR story into something positive for the brand and flipped a crisis situation on its head, but we were prepared for it. It's not like we just flew by the seat of our pants and begged them to say, oh, this is a fake. We had it all planned out, and we knew what our approach was going to be. Yeah?
What was the time frame from the start of that to that news article? Days or a week or?
It was a couple weeks,
okay,
because it took time for the videos to get out there, plus EPA alerts. A lot of people monitor government situations like that. It probably, if I can recall correctly, all end to end, it was about 6 to 8 weeks, but that's end to end. There's more time for like post stuff that was going on, but we delayed some things a certain way until we could get our messaging to the media, because we didn't want them running with the package before they heard our side of the story. Sometimes you don't have that luxury, but our folks know how newsroom works. We had control of the situation. We were very clear. Don't jump the gun on this because you're going to get it wrong. So, again, that's my story. We run an award for it. I think we lost to like Carnival Cruise Lines or something. They had a really bad year. So there's a lot going on with cruise ships right now. Or there was, as you guys heard. So we let them have it. We were finalists. That's okay. But let's review. How does all this stuff come together? How can you actually work with digital crisis communication? So 1, be part of crisis planning. Know your role. What are you supposed to do? If you don't know what it is, you need to tell someone what it is you're going to do if there's an issue. 2, analyze and assess digital threats. If there's an issue out there, you need to provide the POV on what we should be doing, what we should not be doing. Is this a real threat, or is this just an angry person on Facebook, or is it nothing and we should just ignore it? 3, align responses with policies. Understand what works and what doesn't from a compliance standpoint, and draft what potential responses could be. So make sure that it's in alignment, have it reviewed by legal, HR, all those different elements. And last but not least, leverage the tools that you have in favor of managing crisis situations. Don't just look at Hootsuite as a tool to push stuff out. Use it to monitor keywords, different phrases. If you're actually pushing things in certain channels, make sure you're injecting that into part of your strategy. So, in reality, now you're kind of ready. So, maybe you are, maybe you're not. But that's really what it comes down to, is understanding all those different things. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Love for any questions. I know we got maybe 5 minutes. I'll leave that up for a second, and that's that needs to come down. Questions?
I'm sure you weren't a part of it, but when we look at what happened with Rolling Stone and UVA, did UVA handle that situation correctly?
Rolling Stone and UVA, what was the situation? Refresh my memory.
UVA shut down all their fraternities based on an article in Rolling Stone about the gang rape. It's been in the news.
I mean, yeah, it's been there's like 50 million crisis situations going on right now. I don't know enough about it to make an educated guess if they did the right thing. That's very specific. I think the challenge is that you have to understand the amount of pressure put on an organization, especially when someone as big as Rolling Stone runs an article in any way, shape, or form. Imagine the government, in Ohio dealing with all the anonymous threats during that high school issue. I mean, there's always pressure put onside an organization. In some cases, they make decisions to save face, and there's really nothing going on. In other cases, it's real compliance. I think in this world, in this era, going back to my original point, information flows so quickly and so fast, it's easy to carve out what's real and what's not. I mean, if you're under pressure from a real issue and it looks like it's outside of compliance and there's legal action to be taken, you kind of have to make some tough decisions. But in terms of that specific issue, I don't know enough about it to tell you they made the right move or not.
Well, maybe let me ask my question a different way. How long do you have to respond before you're seen as dragging your feet?
Not long.
Hours?
Well, from a digital standpoint, I mean, it should be, most people want instantaneous responses. But you have to look at the sophistication of whatever team that you're working with. So we have a set limit. So, for example, I'll use my team. 24 hours is our max response time in some capacity, unless it involves a legal threat. which is usually the baseline level depending on all things equal. Unless they say, I'm suing you or I'm taking you to court, we'll respond within 24 hours. Sometimes we're just saying, we've heard you, we're on it, and we take it private. But in digital, it's going to be fast. So some people that say it needs to be within 30 minutes, which is fine. It just depends on the issue. What I find is that usually you need to put a flag in the ground in terms of what your response plan is going to be. Consumers are getting to a point where they want it now, immediate. Even I don't care if it's a Saturday at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. We have one client here in town. They have 24/7 constant monitoring. And they're in the financial space. So you could have your debit card at a Kroger at 3 o'clock on a Sunday, and it eats it, and they will respond to you on Twitter, on the phone, or in person because they realize that's the issue. Not all businesses are built like that, but they have to have some level of accountability in order to respond. Now, from a major response issue, so like use GM and Mary Barrow with all the recalls. I mean, that took time to get there. There were government hearings. There were responses. There was a complete launch of a site that dealt with how the money was going to be collected and distributed, warranty information, a lot of moving parts. We find that the media and social and consumer insight move so quickly, you can't afford to put your head in the sand for an undetermined amount of time. There has to be some piece of information that gets leaked, at least a response, and a quick move. But what I will say though is that a press conference to respond to it is not always the best thing. Sometimes it's just media messaging, sometimes it's just, here's a statement, and that's how it works. And in many cases, you need to lick your wounds if that's not what they feel is appropriate, but it's tough to tell. But from a digital standpoint, to bookend my comment, fast. From bigger picture stuff, controlled, but fast.
Brian, I got a quick question for you, and
Yeah.
kind of referencing GM you just talked about, but from maybe a different side is the crisis of technology and stuff that recently happened. We were fortunate for those that attended the search marketing workshop at Eastern last month, we got to hear from the director of social media for GM. But how often do companies and how they reacted to it and turned technology and stuff into a positive?
Yep.
How often do you look at taking a crisis situation and turning that positive and actually maybe poking fun at yourself and kind of becoming a part of that situation so that it does kind of save face from it?
Well, so poking fun at yourself is one thing. I mean, I think you have to have a culture that supports that, and I have some knowledge of that. My girlfriend works at Fleischman Hillard, which is Chevrolet's agency of record, and they helped coordinate that whole just thing. So you have to understand in that situation, it was a humorous debacle, more so than it was a serious debacle. I mean, the guy comes out of the corner sweating, looking like Chris Farley, and he's describing it in reality. He did kind of describe it right. So, and I think they make a certain kind of litmus test in terms of, is this a real thing or is it not? And you can imagine that scales based on the type of company. So for Chevrolet, it takes a few million comments for it to be like considered a real thing probably, and don't quote me on that, versus a company that's smaller that might be like, oh, there's like 100 comments, this might be a real thing. That type of situation where you try to actually play it up, I think really comes down to the type of company you are. There was a very similar issue with the Red Cross when their social media girl tweeted about getting slizzard. If you guys recall, a couple years ago, the girl who runs the handle, I think it was for the Red Cross, tweeted out how she's going to go get slizzard tonight. Basically, Twitter snafu. She tweeted from the wrong account. That's how it works. The Red Cross was quick to respond, saying, "Don't worry, our keys are safe. No one's behind the wheel." She turned it into a fundraiser, and one of the brands of beer got together with them, and they turned it to raise money for the Red Cross. And I believe it was the Red Cross. But if you look it up, it's like Getting Slizzard, social media case study. That was a brand that had a humorous tone. They took an issue they created and turned it into a positive and ended up raising some money for it. I find though that those situations where you turn a positive into like a humorous negative, or turn a negative into a humorous positive, few and far between, and it often depends on the culture of the brand or what perception they want to create. In many cases, that's not reality. But if you're the type of company that's like, hey, yeah, we can get away with this, and we feel it is in alignment with our brand, it makes more sense to do that.
Hi. I'm really curious, having followed what's gone on here in Ann Arbor with the athletic director and concussions and all those type of things. If you were to, obviously it's after the fact, if you were to armchair what went on this fall, what would be your thoughts on what you may have done differently?
That's an interesting question. So there's a unique world in sports where everybody's right. And everybody's like, oh, the Tigers should make this trade, they should do that, or this person should do this and do that. Especially when it comes to athletic director Brandon and that whole deal. Or even Brady Hoke and all that whole deal. I mean, obviously you can see the surmounting comments that's going on. You have to understand, though, that the first response of the brand is to protect the school and the integrity of it. So, as well as relay approved messages that come from within on what they can and cannot talk about. I don't think any companies or even any sports organization is ever going to say, we don't care, we're going to support you, and you guys are right, this guy's got to go. No one's ever going to do that. I mean, they're going to stay face and protect the integrity of the company. Regarding the concussions, I mean, that's an interesting thing. And if you took a step back, I look at like what a lot of surrounding brands did, healthcare organizations. Some of them jumped all over that because what they did is they leveraged their knowledge and expertise to talk about concussions. It's the same thing they did when we had the issue with, what was the most recent pandemic outbreak? That Ebola, yeah. I'm like, there's avian flu, H1N1, I mean, there's always like some outbreak or something. So, but Beaumont, Trinity Health, like those guys were talking about, they had experts talking about what's happening in the space. Now, it's one thing that if they wanted to continue the conversation to make it serious about concussions, I mean, look, we're surrounded by one of the greatest health systems in the country. That's a way that could have happened. That probably was done. Granted, I don't know all the intricate details to make an informed assumption. I think the challenge is when it comes to sports, it's so polarizing. It is so polarizing that you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't in a lot of cases, which is why a lot of those brands have their own set strategy that says, we're going to walk this fine line and we're not going to veer too far into the plank, yes or no. What I would have done is surround ourselves with things that would have been ancillary, secondary topics like what concussions really are, how do they affect players, what is our policy in relation to concussions, and understanding how that can be talked about without directly instigating conversation about what actions took place on the field. That's really hard to do, and they probably did it right, and they managed a lot of mess to make that work, and I give them all the credit in the world. It's just a tough topic. I say the more information you can provide that doesn't instigate crazy conversation, the better. It's not always the case, depending on the type of audience you're talking to, especially sports fanatics.
All right. That's good. That's good. Good questions, good answers. Let's give Brandon Chesnutt a big round of applause. Thank you, Brandon. And good stuff. So we have about 12 minutes that I think we can get through with the introduction. So I ask when you introduce yourself, please stand up, project so we can all hear you, and tell us who you are. And then if you got any good news to share, if you're looking for something, you can share that. We'll start up front here.
Well, again, my name is Denise Murray. I'm the Director of Marketing and Business Development for Briarwood Mall. And my good news this week is that Bravo and PF Chang's is opening. Bravo's tomorrow, PF Chang's is Monday. So.
Good afternoon, my name is David Coleman. I work for Briarwood. We help brands and retailers monitor online pricing.
Hi, my name is Conroy. I'm a digital marketing consultant. I do social media marketing, pay-per-click. I help with content creation. So if you want to discuss marketing your brand online, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lynn Zwink. I am a piano teacher, so I'm just getting into social media and marketing my business. Most of my business is word of mouth and online. So if you guys need piano lessons, it's on Facebook, LZ Piano. I will teach you all how to play piano.
My name is Ed Bataya. I work for Walsh College. I'm the director of the Novi campus. If you're interested in getting your MBA or any business degree, come see me afterwards.
Hi, I'm Andrea Kelly. I'm the Marketing Operations Manager at Indentity Digital Marketing, and we help companies create leads.
Hi, I'm Emily Boney, and I'm a junior content producer at Indentity Digital Marketing. And I was live tweeting today, so if you want to get in on the conversation, it's at LA2M.
Hi, I'm Allison.
I'm a content strategist at Ingenix Digital. If you guys ever want to come and chat with us, you can always find us on Facebook, Ingenix Digital, and you can also chat with us on Twitter at Ingenix.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm a graphic designer at Ingenix.
Hi, my name is Jordan Cruz. I'm a business student at Eastern Michigan University. I also intern at Ingenix, so we got this whole road.
Hi, my name is Linda Baker, and I want to thank Ingenix and Derek for putting this together. I stop in probably about once a month to these, and this is just a great forum, and I just think the amount of networking and the business that takes place is just phenomenal, and I just want to thank you, even though I don't get here as often as I always a great presentation, and I just really appreciate it. Wanted to thank you. My name is Linda Baker, and I actually do business development for a nonprofit called JBS in Southfield, and we try to put people back to work. So I look for employers that are looking to hire some of the people who come in and are looking for jobs at JBS. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Linda Fitzgerald, Fitzgerald Communications. I do copywriting, content development, some copy editing. Also, I took piano lessons for 12 years, and can you teach me how to like the piano?
Hi, I'm Mark Coley with CPS Companies, service, sell, and install business phone systems.
Hello, I'm Teresa Radke. I have a business that I do from home in health and wellness. I market Shackley products, so I also have a word of mouth business and use social media as well for that. So great to be back and learning here. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Jim Musio. I have a company called 5522 Tech. We do web and mobile development consulting. I read a report yesterday that 63% of all emails are opened through mobile. So if you're not prepared for mobile, if your business is not prepared for mobile, I'd love to talk to you about it. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Pazlowski with the Center for Automotive Research, and I handle their marketing and communications.
Hi, I'm Jeremy from Ann Arbor Amateur Hockey. Registration for our winter sessions are now open, so if any of your kids want to play some hockey, get in touch with me.
I'm Roger Rayle. I'm a venture catalyst. I do live streaming and recording of video here at several other organizations and help out other ways. Also run the Ann Arbor Video Interest Group, and our holiday party is tonight. From 6:30 to 8:30, maybe even a little longer, at the Sports Bar West Side, which is on Zeeb and Jackson. It's the old Banfields West, or before that, Paul Bunyan. And we're opening up to the whole creative community. So anybody involved in anything creating content, come on by, because we want to have more collaboration between the different groups. So the website for that is A2VIG, A2VIG, Ann Arbor Video Interest Group, A2VIG.org. You can go there and find out what it's all about and RSVP. Thank you.
My name is Bud Gibson. I created the search marketing program at Eastern, and we have recently just launched the Center for Digital Engagement. We have some big announcements we're going to make around that after the start of the year. Don't want to get lost in the holiday rush. Feel good. We're working away to make it good for you in the new year.
I'm Mary Lou with the LA2M. Thanks everyone for coming out. That was a really interesting talk. A lot of really good information, and I'm sure that everyone here took away something that they could use from that talk. And also, if you haven't signed up for the LA2M holiday party, it would be awesome if you would do that, because we're trying to get a head count. Connor's really appreciates it if we can tell them how many people we expect and don't surprise them with extra folks, and then people don't get enough, and you know the problem. So if anyone here's had a party, you know what I mean. So yeah, so and I hope you can all make it. We'd be happy to have you, and see you all next week.
Hi, I'm Brooke. I am a former journalist, and I now run social media for a credit card processing company called North American Bank Card and Troy.
Hi, I'm Carter Sherlock, Proud Print Studios, and I'm a commercial editorial and portrait photographer. I'll make images issued at these meetings go up on the group's Facebook page.
Thank you, Carter. And again, Derek Merriman, I know most of you. Thanks for being thank you for being here today in our beautifully decorated presentation room. And really enjoyed the talk, Brandon. Good case studies. We've been with Indentity for 8 years. That's a long time.
I'm like OG digital. It's like I've been there for, like, most people don't like to stay at a company for 8 years.
Yeah.
That long.
Yeah.
They must be like doing something right. I mean, or that, or they just won't let me leave. I don't know.
Right. And so what does getting slizzard mean? That was one question.
Oh, she's gonna get wasted. She's gonna get totally wasted.
All right.
Yeah, she go there. Yeah, that's okay. It's all right. You know?
Very good. So anyways, I really appreciate everyone coming today. Thank you for the kind comments. We meet one more time in 2014, and it is for our party next week, which is going to be really fun. Again, we just did those tickets at cost, so that really is just covering the cost, a really nice buffet, and a drink ticket, as I mentioned. So please, if you can buy those, get your tickets, and next week's going to be a party, and then we have the break for Christmas, then we're back next year with some exciting speakers. So, I'm going to speak next year. But
Our kickoff speaker.
I'm the kickoff speaker, yes, thank you. Yeah, I'll be talking in January. Yeah, we'll start good. So anyways, you guys, hope you're having a great holiday season. Keep making an impact in the community. I know you are. And we'll see you hopefully next week at the holiday party. So thanks. See you next time. Thank you.
Dog fishing.